Truthfulness and being truthful to yourself is something that is very, very important, at least for Ray Dalio. And we're gonna go ahead with Ray Dalio's principles. I guess the intro is always the hardest thing about the whole fucking episode. I really guess it is, because it's like I gotta just have to think about something, I'm gonna just have to make up something the episode's maybe gonna be about. And sometimes I'm right. I've actually been miserably wrong as well, but I guess that's quite okay. And yeah, so hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics fucking podcast. This time it's not gonna be clean. It's always gonna be like explicit, quite like always. And I'm honestly, I'm a little bit feared that I'm actually going to kind of miss out on hitting this little explicit button once I maybe even kind of get sponsored or some shit like this through Anchor, which is basically the website that I'm distributing my podcast on, which is enormously great. You know, if you're just thinking about actually having your own podcast, I would totally, and I mean totally, suggest you to go to the anchor.com website. It's, like ANCHOR. I'm not anyhow sponsored by them. It's just a really fucking great website. It really is. And they do a really great job in terms of the support. It's amazing support. I honestly, it was actually my first time I needed the support, because somehow the numbers of my podcast getting downloaded and all these things were somehow pretty high. And just then, suddenly everything dropped completely. I only had 1 or 2 views or listens or whatever you want to say on my podcast episodes. And then I just, decided to actually write them a little letter or like a little email. And they just immediately, I think after 2 hours or something, or 1.5 hours, actually they replied and were like, okay, we're going to find out. I just, had to give them some data and what's on. And they just did it. And it was so extremely nice. This person, he is called Vincent, I guess, if I remember correctly. Shout out if, any of the Anchor kind of workers or support workers or whatever it is, employees, are actually watching this or hearing this. Your support is amazingly great. It totally is. It is just enormously great. And I think it is a very, very important part of the internet, or an internet company. I guess it truly has to have just a great support, because this is what people sometimes need. And if they just don't get it, or if it's just really insufficient, then they're gonna be pissed off. And it also happened to me. Like, I once also, and I'm not gonna name anything, I also needed the support, but my message was, or I was replied to, I think 2 weeks after I've just, written them a message on Twitter, I guess, which I understand it, like, for sure, it's not always gonna be as nice as with Anchor, but actually to initially or come to the origin of why I've been talking about Anchor, they actually distribute your podcast to Spotify, Breaker, and a lot of other platforms, and they just do it, and it is for free, and you even can earn money through Anchor with sponsorships and whatsoever. Like, it is pretty fucking easy, and it is pretty fucking great. They just really do a great job. You for sure, once you have somehow monetized your podcast, you do just have to give them a percentage of what you earn through all the sponsorships and whatsoever, because they actually kind of organize it somehow, if I'm understanding it correctly, or if I understood it correctly. But still, they do just a really great job. But yeah, enough being talked about in podcasts and how to actually do it. Maybe this even helps someone. I don't know. It could actually be the thing. But as I said in the intro already, and I really think that I won't go through another one of the Ray Dalio's Principles episode tomorrow. I guess I just, have to change it up a little bit once again, because I don't know, like, for sure, if I'm treating them like just, if I'm treating every single episode as a singular episode, not like a whole summary, then I guess like, yeah, I'm still doing it, or I'm already doing it. But still, I kind of think like, okay, or feel like I just gotta have to do something else, besides this summary. But yeah, we are going ahead with radical truth and radical transparency. I've been starting with this actually, as I recognize right now. A radical truth is not filtering. Revealing one's thoughts and questions relentlessly surfaces issues immediately instead of hiding them. This provides the opportunity to have the thoughtful disagreement and see things through each other's eyes. Everyone has not only the privilege but also the obligation to speak up. It's simple, just don't filter. An example would be an employee sent Ray an email, "You deserve a D- for your performance in the meeting. It was obvious that you did not prepare at all." So actually, an employee sent Ray an email just saying something. I guess it's actually not like the best thing you can do, just actually writing your boss such an email. Like, I kind of feel like it's not gonna always be the best thing, but I guess Ray Daly somehow handled it quite nicely, to be honest. Like, I'm really feeling like he is a good boss, and he is really a nice boss as well. Just, I'm just assuming. I don't actually know. The inverse of this is hiding one's real thoughts and burying problems and disagreements. This happens in many or most workplaces. So the inverse of this is hiding one's real thoughts and burying problems and disagreements. This aggravates misunderstandings or disagreements and leads to larger conflicts and separation, which is actually, at my point of view, the exact same thing with relationships as well. I do not quite remember where I've got the information from. The thing with me is, I'm spreading a lot of information, I'm spreading a lot of things on Instagram and on totally a lot of social media platforms as well. It is quite never just my thoughts. Sometimes they actually are, and sometimes I do just have great thoughts, to be honest. The thing is, most of the time, I've collected so many thoughts, all of them I found were just pretty great, and I somehow collected them, and I somehow absorbed all of them, and this is how I think, and this is what I think, and what I think about, and I don't know, like, I truly understand that somebody would not listen to what I'm saying, and this is actually then good if I am able to actually point out, from whom this information actually is. But often I don't know. Like, I've absorbed all these things over the past, 2 years or something, and it is just, becoming me, or it just became me somehow. But I truly think it is the same thing with relationships as well. So if there are if there is actually some tension, and everyone is just kind of burying it somewhere, it's gonna just really lead to a pretty big conflict, or to a pretty big conflict later on. And this is the problem. Like, you either have somehow a little bit of tension, a little bit of disagreement, maybe just now, instead of actually having a pretty great and a pretty large conflict, and maybe even a separation later on. Like, it really also plays into the kind of long-term goals or long-term thinking kind of thinking. Like, if you think long-term, you will totally just attack or kind of just solve these problems, these little kind of communication problems even just now, because you understand that it's going to lead, or it would lead to a lot of problems in the long term, which is totally not good, and they will going to be, bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And as I said, it might lead actually to a separation, which is then just, pretty fucked up, because everything started with something that you could have handled in the very beginning of it. So radical truth may be short-term painful, but long-term helpful. I haven't read it. I've actually not read it. I actually haven't. It is something that happens to me quite often, that I'm, talking about something, and then later on, just, I don't know, 2 paragraphs, 1 paragraph, from the paragraph where I've stopped to actually say this, it's actually the same information that I was just talking about, which is the exact same fucking thing there. So often the cost to this is open criticism, discomfort. But this is tough, but this is though love, and a sign of caring is telling people what they need to improve. Quote unquote, when I thought someone did something stupid, I said so, and I expected them to tell me when I did something stupid as well. That was what strong and productive relationships looked like. Operating any other way would be unproductive and unethical. And it really makes sense. At my point of view, it really makes sense that everybody is able to speak his mind and doesn't actually have to be... I get it now. In the beginning, it has been pretty tough to actually understand what he's talking about when he's talking about transparency, what this is all about. It's all about transparency. He wants his employees to be really honest and really transparent with their thinking with him. And then he also can be the same. And I guess it's actually pretty nice. It actually makes sense. It totally makes sense. So people need to internalize the embrace reality points above on an individual level. Pain plus reflection is progress on the organizational level. If you're clear about what you're doing and why, there won't be misunderstandings. And they will understand why you're being tough on them. Remember, the purpose is to arrive at truth and not prove that someone is right or wrong. Aligning what you say and what you feel is much simpler. You can focus on the most important things and you will be happier. It must be acceptable to make mistakes. It must be unacceptable to not learn from them, which is actually true. But who the fuck actually somehow measures that? Who can actually measure if you have learned something from that certain mistake? For sure, you can just, you can be a little bit more like, okay, this person has made a mistake. I'm now gonna talk with this person and see if he or she actually understands what was wrong about the whole thing. Or something like this, this is actually kind of able, or you're actually able to do this. And I guess, you can somehow 70% be sure that this person's gonna just learn something out of it. If it is really okay, you're doing just something and it was a failure and whatsoever, and you just blame them, or you kind of just, point it out, okay, you've done it wrong, it was a failure, it was a mistake. I guess if you're doing it like this, then people will forget quite quickly, if you do not have a conversation afterwards. And if you're only basically just saying okay, it was a mistake and please learn from it. I hope you understand what I'm actually saying. But I guess, it just makes sense, at least for me it makes sense. It must be acceptable, or I've already read that. So how to get and stay in sync. Getting in sync is aligning on all levels and resolving misunderstandings and disagreements. Radical truth is necessary to get in. Prioritize getting in sync on the most important issues with the most believable parties. I think parties actually, but it's just misspelled, so I don't know. I guess it's parties, it's spelled Parties. The C I think is just, as I said, a little mistake. So make a list of disagreements in priority. Downweigh chirping, which is complaining without taking the full picture into account or reflecting close-mindedness. People must practice thoughtful disagreement and be radically open-minded to get in sync. Identify closed-minded people and deal with them accordingly. Be open-minded and assertive at the same time. You must see things through others' eyes while communicating clearly how you see things. This is essential to the idea mediocrity. And I truly think that, it basically, I guess, is empathy. If you can't see things through other people's eyes, or if you can't feel with others, empathy is something very important for me, because, I would say, first of all, on a personal level completely, like it totally makes sense on a personal level that you kind of feel with other people, so that you're not gonna say something stupid, not gonna say something that's gonna hurt this person. Just like, there's always something to say. Like, there are always some exceptions, or some things that I do just want to point out. And one of them is, okay, if it is about being truthful, and if it is about being honest to this person, and it might hurt them, yeah, what would you do about it? Like, it is what it is. If it is just really something that you have to tell this person because you clearly see that they are doing something they shouldn't be doing, or something like this, and it might even hurt them if you just point it out and tell them or whatsoever, I think you still just, have to point it out. You just have to tell them. Like, sometimes we have. Yeah, sometimes we just have. We just have to say things people don't want to know, people don't want to realize, for the sake of actually maybe helping them. But it's always, I think, a tough decision whether it is actually helping them, or if it is actually only attacking their dome, or if it's actually only hurting their dome, or their self-esteem or confidence, or whatever it will be. But empathy also on a professional level, or in your professional life, is pretty important, because one of the things that I just really realized is that in the end we all work with people. Like, no matter what you're doing, there's gonna be some people. If you're just kind of self-employed, or if you're an entrepreneur or something, you maybe are having employees, you maybe are having clients, and they all need you just have to be nice to them. Like, you have to be able to kind of communicate with people, I guess. I really think that is important, and I don't know, it would actually be a nice subject to have in school, wouldn't it? I guess it is really not common, that empathy, I guess, it isn't common. I think it's not like everybody has it. It does make somebody special then, because you can still learn it on something, or just, reflect a little bit more, and just, think a little bit more. But yeah. So most people find it easier to be assertive, in brackets, since they have ego attachments, and it is easier to share how you see things than to emphasize. Remind them that the real winners are those who change their minds, since they learn something. Some are too willing to accept others' conclusions. Hiding one's viewpoints will hamper the idea mediocrity, since some ideas may be better. Actually, something really important, if you do just have to say something, and if you do just have an idea for something, I really think that you should say it, because sometimes it's really like, okay, one person starts with an idea, and at the end, all people somehow work together, if it's in terms of a conference, or if it's in terms of a meeting, and actually in the end, it's been a pretty great fucking idea. I think it's nothing new. I think it's nothing that's too crazy to think about. But still, I kind of feel like, because I'm maybe even experiencing it in school, maybe just because of that I'm thinking about it, some people actually have ideas, but they are like, I don't know, they just do not wanna kind of maybe stand up for it and be like, okay, I gotta have this idea. I'm having this idea. And, or just, if the teacher is asking something, not everybody will just raise their hand. Not everybody will do this. Some won't, some will. It is like, I don't know, and I think it's just pretty close to what this is all about. Maybe even. Suggestions and questions are not the same as criticizing. A person making suggestions may not have concluded a mistake will be made. They are just double checking. So a person making suggestions may not have concluded a mistake will be made. they are just double checking. Yeah, I see where he's heading. Yeah, there's actually an example. So watch out for the eyes versus you being careless and not looking for the eyes. Yeah, it actually definitely is something different. If you say one of the things, like, it really is. And this is one of the reasons why I think that being a good communicator and knowing how to communicate with human beings is actually very, very important, because a lot of people will just be like, okay, you're being careless and not looking for the eyes, which is definitely attacking the other person's self-esteem or the other person's thinking or whatever it actually is. It will totally hurt them. I don't know if it's gonna hurt everybody, but I guess a lot of them. It's just what I feel. And I'm gonna have to turn on the lights because you can't even see me. And now it's a little bit better. So managing meetings. Make clear the level the meeting is operating on. Principle, machine level, case at hand, specific fact. Make clear who is directing the meeting and what the goals are. Repeat the questions to be clear what is being asked and answered. Actually pretty important. And I guess it's a great point that you repeat the question to really let the other person also understand that actually asked the question, that you've understood it correctly, and also just double checking your answer, I guess, is also just good, or at least makes sense. If you are like, was this a sufficient answer? And there, the whole transparency and being truthful actually plays again into hands, because I've experienced myself. Like, if I'm asking someone something and they're like, yeah, it's this and that, and I haven't actually understood it, I'm not gonna ask again. I really won't, even though they sometimes, are like, have you understood it and whatsoever. But I guess there you, as a leader, maybe just have to over communicate that it is totally okay if this person hasn't understood it already. Like, it is totally okay if you really, ask again, okay, I haven't understood it yet. Because maybe, I guess, something, really important is on the table, really important is being spoken about. And if you don't know because you don't get it, because you're too, like, I don't know, anxious to ask once again, yeah, not that good, I guess. And I don't know, I think as a leader you should totally then over communicate, like, okay, have you understood it? It is totally okay. If you haven't, I'm gonna just try to explain it a little bit better. Like, I guess, like, yeah, the leader can actually do a lot of things. The leader can actually lead to greatness, maybe, if you're willing. Let's see. Limit the participation to whom you value most for your objectives. 3 to 5 smart people may be better than 20 due to decreasing marginal benefits of new perspectives and inefficiency in group coordination. If someone is inexperienced, actually, Bezos has somehow a rule on how many people actually can attend one of his meetings. So one of his, I think, he calls them 11 a.m. meetings or 9 a.m. meetings, because this basically is, he's just structuring his day like, okay, the first meeting is going to be the most important one, and the first meeting is going to be the earliest one as well. And I think it's 9 a.m. or maybe 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Don't quite remember, but I think he has a 2 pizza rule, if I remember correctly, which means that you should be able to feed, even though it sounds a little bit like stupid, that you should actually be able to feed all the people in your group and all the people in your meeting with 2 pizzas. Which means, like, okay, for sure you can be like, okay, some people would just really eat 2 pieces and whatsoever, and it depends on how many pieces you cut out of the fucking pizza. I don't remember if it actually was 4 slices of pizza for each pizza, or if it was like, okay, 8 slices of each pizza. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I really don't. But maybe you check out the Everything Store summary that I've been gone through on this podcast and or channel as well. It basically somehow summarizes just how Bezos was able to, or how Bezos actually built Amazon in terms of the whole timeline, which was quite interesting. I think, I've gone through a part of the timeline, not fully because it was too long, and the last few episodes basically were about some rules that Bezos had, and basically the pizza rule, you can totally just, look it up. It is pretty easy, pretty quickly. I think you gotta find it just quite fast. So if someone inexperienced offers an opinion, weigh the cost of exploring the opinion versus the gain in assessing their thinking. Totally makes sense that you're thinking like, really being efficient with the time you're having, I guess. Avoid topic slip by tracking the conversation on a whiteboard so everyone can see where it's going. For regular meetings, have standardized meeting agendas. What actually is an agenda? Oh, I see. Makes sense. Yeah, it really makes sense. I guess also because you will be able to somehow adapt that agenda to really be efficient. Like you will totally see, okay, this is working, this is not working. Should the meeting be on 12 a.m. or should it better be at 3 p.m.? What is better? When do the people have the most energy? When are the people the most creative? And all these things, because time really matters. And tactics. Start by assuming you're not communicating or listening well, rather than blaming the other party. Makes sense, and I think it also plays into the hands of over-communicating everything. Repeat what you're hearing to make sure you're getting it. Worry about some substance more than style. If you're bothered by someone's style of communication, box it as a separate issue. Also makes sense. Even though I guess it is pretty hard to box that. To really box that without actually, kind of getting into, okay, I don't want this person to be in the meeting anymore because it's somehow bothering me or it's somehow not good for the meeting. Or at least you think like this or feel like this. So if either party is too emotional to be logical, defer the conversation by hours or days. It just makes sense. It really just makes sense. If someone says, I feel like X is true, ask them, is it true? How do you know? Do you ground them in reality? Use the 2-minute rule for uninterrupted discussions of points. Beware of assertive fast talkers. They assertively say things faster than can be comprehended to push back objections, especially effective against people worried about looking dumb. To neutralize, say, I'm sorry for being slow, but I need to slow you down to make sense of what you're saying. I get what he's saying. Yeah, totally. And I think it also plays into like, okay, you just truly want to understand everything the person is saying. And if it's like, it sounds like dumb shit, I think you just have to kind of ask again. End the conversation by stating the conclusion. I think very important. Also because maybe I think the people in the meeting will totally help you to somehow summarize the whole meeting in the end, because you won't be able to somehow kind of memorize everything, and therefore I think it also will help all the other people to actually memorize and remember the things as well. If there isn't agreement, say that. If there is further action, make a to-do list, assign people to do them by deadlines. Also makes sense, really going ahead with the meeting. and with all the informations, ideas, and everything that went out of the meeting as an outcome. Get leverage in your communications by sharing. And communication meant to educate should involve more people than that meant to arrive at the best answer. Not including them will undermine morale. So communication meant to educate should involve more people than that meant to arrive at the best answer. Not including them will undermine morale. Don't actually know what he's saying, but this is actually the end of the episode. And it's quite something to go, actually. Yeah, it totally is just something to do. But, from the beginning on, I really, truly knew that it's gonna take me a lot of time. It's really gonna take me a lot of time, but it is because it is so impressively fucking detailed. And I guess that there are going to be just really amazing things further on. I really think that, or at least I believe in it, or just want to believe it maybe, or I actually hope. I don't know, but my eyes. I really hope that I'm not getting allergical somehow reactions through something or against something. But yeah, I do not actually know where I've just stopped now. How to Get in Sync. I've read that, but yeah, never mind. Thank you for watching from the fucking bottom of my fucking heart. It's been a great time, even for me. I hope it's been a great time for you as well. I hope that you've learned something. And yeah, I wish you the best health, wealth, happiness, and success. And I still hope that you are going to remember yourself how you're gonna be remembered. Or you mind yourself on, how you're gonna be remembered, which means, in the end, what person have you been? Like, have you been a good person? Have you been a bad person? And I guess, if you're successful but still known as a bad person, what success is it? Like, if everybody hates you but you're successful, like, yeah, I think it wouldn't feel good, at least not for me. At least this is what I want to do, that I want to just accomplish. Being a good person and being known as a good person. And yeah, maybe for this, I'm building this community. I'm trying to build this legacy. I don't know. But I see you. And I really have to thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you the next time.